For the next 31 days on the FCPA Compliance Report, we're going to be bringing you a daily tip, strategy, or idea that you can use to improve your program. Here's your host, Tom Fox, the Compliance Evangelist.
Asking questions to boost your compliance program. Other than the skill of listening, asking questions is about as important to the compliance practitioner as any other skill that can be employed. Yet, equally critical is to ask the right questions, which is an issue explored by Grazer and Charles Fishman in their book, A Curious Mind, The Secret to a Bigger Life. Grazer is a well-known and successful Hollywood director who has directed such movies as Splash, A Beautiful Mind, and Cinderella Man. He believes that much of the success he has achieved is because he asks lots of questions, and questions are a great management tool. This is because asking questions elicits information, and it also creates the space for people to raise issues they are worried about that a boss or colleague may not know about. By asking questions, you allow people to tell a different story than the one you're expecting. Finally, and perhaps most significantly, asking questions mean that people have to make their case for the way they want a decision to go. Getting your employees to simply not talk to you, but to tell the truth about how they feel or what they may be thinking is a key skill for any leader. As a CCO, you may find this particularly difficult in far-flung reaches of an international company. Whether you're performing a risk or simply getting out of the corporate home office, you may need to be able to engage employees across the globe from a variety of cultures. Asking open-ended questions so you will not receive a simple yes-no answer back. Some key foundational questions include: what are you focused on? Why are you focused on that? What are you worried about? What is your plan? By asking these questions, what are you hoping for? What are you expecting? What's the most important part for you? As a CEO, you can get much more engagement from people with whom you work. Consider pursuit of a high-profit deal in a high-risk geographic area. You might want to sit down with a business unit person in charge of the project and ask them, what is your plan to sign this contract and execute it consistent with your obligations within the company's compliance program? In doing so, you are communicating two key concepts using a 360-degree approach to communication. First, you make clear there is a plan in place. Second, you make clear the employee is in charge of that plan. Therefore, by simply asking the question, you are communicating to the employee both the responsibility for the problem and the authority to come up with a solution. This type of approach allows those who desire to step up to do. It's a simple quality of human nature that people prefer to choose to do things rather than be ordered to do them. Equally important are the values you can transmit by asking questions. If you do not have to fly to China or some other local office, you do not want to be seen as the U.S. corporate executive coming to deliver some bad news or that costs need to be cut. By asking questions, you can solicit ideas to help solve problems. This is because asking questions creates the authority in people to come up with ideas, coupled with the responsibility for moving things forward. Questions create space for all kinds of ideas and the sparks to come up with those ideas. Most importantly, the questions send a very clear message. We're willing to listen, even to ideas or suggestions or problems that we weren't expecting. This is not about being warm and fuzzy. It is demonstrating curiosity in the employee. You should begin by asking questions in the context of 360 degrees of communication. Louis Sapperman has made clear this concept is more than simply a two-way up and down approach. It really demonstrates not only a level of knowledge, but communication itself is important in every other direction in the workplace. People should ask their bosses questions. If employees feel comfortable enough to ask questions, it allows the CCO to be clear about things that they think are clear, and more importantly, which may not be clear at all. Finally, if a person asks a question, they most usually listen to the answer. This is because people are more likely to consider a piece of advice or flat-out instruction if they've asked for it in the first place. You can use this simple and straightforward technique not only to improve leadership qualities in the compliance function, but also your organization's compliance function as well. The reason that asking questions is so much better than simply giving orders is that you have a vast, talented workforce you can tap into to do business in compliance. But the how of doing a business process is or should be burned into your company and can be facilitated by possibilities that are out there in employees' minds. 360 degrees of communications allows you to create an atmosphere where nobody is afraid to ask a question. Perhaps equally important, no one is afraid to answer a question. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Number 1, asking questions is a great technique to solicit information. This may not be as important as listening, but it's right up there with listening, and it certainly is complementary to listening. 2, asking questions creates the authority in people to come up with ideas, coupled with responsibility for moving those ideas forward. So not only do you get new ideas, but you get buy-in and you get action steps that you can use. And 3, create an atmosphere where no employee is afraid to ask or answer a question. Trust is absolutely critical for every chief compliance officer and compliance practitioner, and having a speak-up culture, even if it's just asking questions or answering those questions, is equally important. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. I'd like to thank you again for joining me for this episode of 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program, and I hope you will join me for our next episode tomorrow. This podcast series on 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.